Hi everyone, it's Gemma here from The Zombie Killer Bride. Welcome back to my channel. Please don't judge me, I don't have a background yet, so I just figured make it as plain as possible. We have a fake plant. Welcome. So whether you're on the train to work, maybe you're in bed after a long day, maybe you're in bed with the flu, maybe you're just listening to this in the background while you're doing your makeup. Hi, I'm Gemma. As I said, this is the Zombie Killer Bride. Let's get into some true crime. Today we're traveling to Florida, and specifically we're heading to a place called Deltona. Now the woman that we're talking about today is named Angela Stoldt. Angela was born in 1972, and she was actually born in Thailand. She spent the early years of her life traveling around because she came from an army family. Finally, in her early teens, they settled back in Florida. Angela seems to have some issues with relationships. Apparently she found it hard to find friends when her family moved around, which is totally understandable. And also by the age of 25, she had been married 3 times and she had 2 children. When their family got back to the US, Angela met a guy at just age 14 and started a pretty serious relationship with him. She in fact left school to marry this guy. The relationship was described as being volatile and it didn't last very long. At the age of 20, she marries another guy, which also ends in divorce, although they did have a child together, which I believe would be her son. Her third marriage lasts a little bit longer. At age 25, she gets married for the 3rd time and she has a baby daughter. Settling in the suburb of Deltona, Angela, who is also known as Angel, started a friendship with a neighbour who lived across the street. The family is that of James Schaefer. Now, he lived with his 4 children in the house across the street, along with his girlfriend of 17 years. And James's and Angela's children would play together. The relationship that Angela and James has is not a romantic relationship. They have more of a beer buddy drinking relationship. The reason they got along so well was that Angela was a night owl and James was a limo driver, so he often worked nights, so they kind of kept the same hours. They usually end up drinking on the porch late at night and they would get talking. James would tell her about his money issues. He's 34 years old. He seems to have a gambling problem and he owes a lot of money in bills. His accounts are constantly overdrawn and he starts to write bad checks for things that he buys. Another thing that he does is anytime he gets his hands on some cash, he gambles it away. On top of this, he is also on disability payments because he has depression. Angela has her own issues, including a health issue called hyperthyroidism, which, according to the National Center for Biotechnology Information, has side effects including irritability, insomnia, anxiety, restlessness, fatigue, impairment in concentrating, and memory. Now, the article that I read said that symptoms can also go into mania, depression, and delirium. So in 2011, Angela is 39 years old and her marriage is not doing too well. In fact, some people say that it's violent. And one day, her husband walks out of the house and never returns. Angela seems kind of happy that he's gone. Even though he leaves the family in financial crisis, Angela soon starts dating again. She's even dating a guy all the way over in Texas. She's able to survive off monthly government payments that she gets for her hyperthyroidism. She also gets paid $100 a month from James, her neighbour, for helping her with his bookkeeping. Now, I guess you're wondering how James can get disability payments while he's also working. Well, this is where Angela comes in. He would have his health payments paid into Angela's account to make it look like she was getting the payments. She would get paid $1,200 a month, and James would pay out of that $100 per month to Angela for receiving that money for him, hence, quotation marks, bookkeeping. So let's fast forward to 2013. By this point, James is actually starting to get into trouble for his gambling. People think that he owes a lot of money, and he's starting to get paranoid. On April 3rd, he is seen leaving work after driving a group of people over to Tampa. And then his girlfriend gets a weird text message from him saying, "I don't know when you're going to see me." Now, don't forget, he'd been with his girlfriend for 17 years. We don't know if she knew about his financial problems, but we can probably presume that she does. Some of James's friends also got weird text messages from him, and they presumed that he was going on the run because of his financial issues. He told some of them that he was being followed and that he had to go off the radar. He said that he would be back when it was safe. After he doesn't come home that night or the following day, on April 4th, his parents reported him to the police as being missing. His phone pings on several different towers, so they don't know exactly where he is. Police decide to knock on some doors within the neighbourhood, and one of those doors is that of Angela Stoldt, James's drinking buddy. She says she hasn't seen James for a few days. Later, the police find out that she is taking his benefit money, so they come back and pay her another visit after a few days' time. She still says she hasn't heard from James. She even shows them her phone and says, "Look at the text message. He texted me and said, 'I'm going away for a while.'" The police know that something's up, so they ask if they can take a look around. They go into Angela's house and they find that it is one of the most disgusting houses that they've ever seen. It's a mess. One investigator that I saw on the Oxygen TV show Snapped said, "It was probably one of the worst houses I have ever seen. Dirty, filthy, with trash everywhere." But gross house aside, they can't find James anywhere in the house. They did expect to find James hiding out at Angela's house. However, when they didn't find him, they press Angela with more questions, and finally she caves and says, "Maybe I have seen him." She says she definitely saw him the day he went missing. In fact, they went to the bank together and he gave her $150 that he owed her. The police say, "How did James get to the bank?" And Angela says, "Oh, he got driven there by some other person. I didn't see who it was." She goes on to say that later that night, James came over to her porch and said he needed money. When she sees him on the porch, Angela says, "The police are looking for you, James," which makes no sense because he wasn't actually reported missing until the following day, April 4th. Time goes on, and it's now 2.5 weeks since anyone has seen James. Emergency Services gets a call from Angela's sister, and her name is April. She tells them that she needs help because Angela says she's going to unalive herself. The police go over to Angela's house, and she says she needs to speak to investigators who are looking after James's case. The police said she looked a state and that she was definitely going through some kind of emotional crisis. She tells them, "You guys should have stopped me. You could have ended this before it got to this point." So the police read her Miranda rights, which means I guess she's given them enough to realise that she's about to confess. Then Angela asked for a lawyer and refuses to say anything else. They take her to a mental health facility and she starts telling the investigator she wants to hang herself. He perseveres and finally Angela admits the truth. On April 3rd, 2013, Angela claimed that she'd picked James up after he finished work around 3 a.m. and they had some drinks as usual. James asked her if he could have some money. James wants Angela to ask her father, who is dying, for $4,000 to give to James. At some point during the night, they go for a drive, I suppose to discuss the situation. They drive over to the Austin Cemetery and they sit in the car park in the dark for a while. Apparently, after arguing over this $4,000 business, Angela says James attacked her in the car. In response, Angela says she stabs James in the eye with an ice pick. In addition to that, She also strangled him. It's interesting to note that she also told police that after he was dead, she stabbed him in the other eye as well, although later in court, she denied this. Angela's sister April said that Angela had told her she'd got behind James in the car and strangled him with some kind of cord. She'd also told April that he was, quote, really out of it, probably meaning that he'd drunk a lot. However, Angela's daughter actually says that Angela told her that she had spiked James's drink. Flexeril is a muscle relaxant, and her father happened to have this in his possession for his illness. Of course, Angela denies all of this. After James is dead, Angela freaks out in the car because she realizes that her kids might be taken away from her. So she takes James's body home. James was bleeding profusely from the head, so she wraps his head in plastic on the drive home to prevent blood from spilling all over her car. I'd say it's a little bit late now at this point. She takes the body back to her house. Angela then takes a hacksaw and cuts the body into pieces. She also uses a couple of kids' blow-up swimming pools for the backyard in which to wrap the pieces. After this, she decides, hang on a minute, maybe I could cremate the pieces in the oven. She puts one of James's legs in her oven and bakes it. She puts other pieces on the stove and begins to cook those as well. She said that James's head would not fit in the pot because the ice pick was still poking out of his eye, so she removed it. Apparently, she's never burned food in her life because she was surprised when cooking the pieces of James's body created so much smoke. She also didn't expect that there would be such a strong smell coming from the house. She decides that the only thing to do is to dump the body parts somewhere. Her kids at the time were 18 and 16, and she told them that she had hit a deer on the road and that she had to get rid of the parts. This is weird to me because usually if people hit an animal, they generally leave it where it is. She asks her son to help her to put the pieces in the car. I presume they're wrapped up at this point, so he doesn't allegedly know what they are. They drive around the county, dumping the pieces in various places. They even go as far as 30 minutes away to New Smyrna Beach, where they dump some other pieces. Investigators find out that she actually bought a pair of rubber gloves from Walmart the day of the murder, just hours before she killed James. This doesn't help her case. After being told where she dumped the pieces, police are unfortunately only able to find 56 of Schaefer's bones, and they never find his torso, which apparently was cut into 3 pieces. Angela tells the court at her trial that James attacked her and she acted in self-defense. The jury spent just 3 hours deliberating before finding Angela Stoldt guilty. She was also found guilty of abuse of a dead body and tampering with physical evidence. Stoldt was convicted of first-degree murder and she was sentenced to life in prison without parole on December 5th, 2014. To follow the life sentence, Judge Rowe also sentenced her to 15 years for abusing a dead body and another 5 years for tampering with physical evidence to follow the body abuse charge. Judge Rowe told the jury, "I suspect that most of you have never heard anything like what you've heard this week and probably hope that you never have to hear it again." And that is the story of Angela Stoldt and the murder of James Schaefer. If you like this video, guys, please consider subscribing. Leave me a ghosty emoji down in the comments and maybe like this video if you feel the need. I will see you again soon. And if you have any stories that you would like me to cover, please email me at this email address. See you guys.